A sunny day at the zoo. The first sliver of sunlight through her curtains was all it took. Lily's eyes snapped open, a wide grin stretching across her face. Today was the day. She bounced out of bed, a spring in her step, and quickly pulled on her favorite monkey print t-shirt. Downstairs, the scent of Grandma's famous blueberry pancakes filled the air, but Lily barely noticed. Her mind was already filled with the jungle sounds and furry faces awaiting her. "Morning, sleepyhead." Grandma Rose chuckled, placing a plate in front of her. "Someone's excited, I see." Lily shoveled a forkful of pancake into her mouth. "We're going to the zoo to see the gorillas." Her voice was a squeal of pure joy. "They're my absolute favorite. They're so big and strong, and sometimes they just sit and think like people." An hour later, the vibrant cacophony of the zoo entrance enveloped them. A sea of prams, balloons, and chattering voices swirled around the ticket booths. The air hummed with anticipation, punctuated by the squawk of distant parrots and the faint roar of a lion. Grandma Rose navigated the throng with practiced ease, Lily clutching her hand, her eyes darting everywhere, trying to absorb every detail. The giant, brightly colored sign above them read, "Welcome to Woodland Wildlife Park." "Just through here, sweet pea," Grandma Rose said, presenting their tickets. Lily practically skipped past the turnstile, tugging gently on her grandma's hand. "Can we go straight to the great ape house? Please, please, please. I want to see how many of the gorillas are out today." Her heart hammered with an exhilarating mix of wonder and impatience. She imagined them, magnificent and powerful, perhaps even making eye contact. Meeting Mighty. The scent of popcorn and damp earth mingled as Lily and Grandma navigated the winding paths of the zoo. They paused briefly by the playful antics of the otters, their sleek bodies darting through the water, before continuing their focused trek. "Almost there, little one," Grandma murmured, adjusting her grip on Lily's hand. Mighty's a sight to behold. Lily, buzzing with anticipation, scanned the signs, her eyes widening at the large, stylized gorilla silhouette pointing them onward. Finally, they rounded a bend, and the grand gorilla habitat sprawled before them. A massive, panoramic glass wall offered an unobstructed view into a lush, multi-tiered enclosure. Verdant foliage cascaded down artificial cliffs, and a gentle waterfall splashed into a shallow pool. But all eyes, including Lily's, were drawn to the imposing figure stretched out on a sun-drenched rock platform. Mighty, the magnificent silverback, lay on his side, his immense form a study in quiet power. His fur, a deep charcoal black, shimmered in places, hinting at the silvery saddle across his broad back. His eyes, though partially lidded in repose, held an ancient, knowing depth. He exhaled slowly, a soft rumble that seemed to vibrate through the very air, utterly content in his domain. Lily felt a tingle of awe, a profound sense of respect for the peaceful giant. Grandma squeezed her hand gently. "Isn't he something?" she whispered. "The grumpy man appears." The hushed reverence of the gorilla enclosure shattered with a jarring, "Oi, is this thing alive or what?" The words, sharp and demanding, bounced off the polished concrete and reverberated through the humid air. Heads, previously tilted in quiet observation, snapped towards the source of the disruption. A man, portly and dressed in a rumpled khaki vest, stomped purposefully towards the thick glass, his heavy boots echoing on the walkway. His face was a perpetual scowl, deep lines etched around a mouth that seemed permanently downturned. He had a thick, salt and pepper mustache that twitched with his impatient exhales. He came to an abrupt halt directly in front of where Lily and Grandma stood, effectively blocking their view, a self-important puff of his chest preceding him. "Honestly, the nerve of some people," Grandma muttered, her grip tightening almost imperceptibly on Lily's hand. Lily, startled by the sudden loud voice, watched with wide eyes as the man, Mr. Grumbles, as she would later learn, leaned closer to the glass, his breath fogging a small patch. He squinted at the massive silverback, who, until that moment, had been peacefully grooming a patch of fur. The man tapped the glass, a soft thwack that still managed to feel aggressive in the quiet. He then looked around, as if expecting an immediate ovation for his profound observation. His expression remained one of deep dissatisfaction, as if the gorilla's very existence was an inconvenience. Ignoring the rules, Mr. Grumbles huffed, his eyes scanning the enclosure. He'd paid good money to get in here, and this thing was just sitting there, picking at its teeth. His gaze snagged on a bright red sign, stark against the muted greens and browns. "Do not tap on glass." A sneer twisted his lips. Rules were for other people, for those who didn't know how to get what they wanted. He was here for a show, and he was going to get one. He raised a meaty fist, knuckles pale as he brought it down, thwack, against the thick pane of glass. The sound, dull and intrusive, cut through the gentle hum of the zoo. Nothing. He tried again, harder this time, a resounding thwack that vibrated through the air. A few nearby visitors glanced over, some with disapproving frowns, but Mr. Grumbles just puffed out his chest. He was in charge here. Deep within the enclosure, Mighty's broad shoulders tensed. The persistent, jarring sound, a clumsy intrusion into his quiet afternoon, was a pebble in his otherwise smooth stream of consciousness. He slowly lifted his heavy head, eyes, usually placid, now narrowed fractionally. A faint frown creased his brow as he fixed his gaze on the source of the unwelcome disturbance. The human, a small, noisy speck on the other side of his world, continued to pound. Irritation, a slow-burning ember, began to glow in Mighty's chest. A zookeeper's warning. The scent of damp straw and exotic flora usually brought Mr. Henderson a sense of peace, but today, a jarring rhythm shattered the morning quiet. He was checking on the okapis, their shy eyes reflecting the dappled sunlight filtering through the canopy, when a persistent thudding reverberated from the direction of the gorilla enclosure. A frown creased his brow. It wasn't the usual playful thump of the primates themselves. He quickened his pace, his worn boots crunching softly on the gravel path. Rounding the corner, he saw him. A portly man, spectacles perched precariously on his nose, repeatedly striking the thick observation glass with the flat of his palm. Mr. Grumbles, as the staff privately called him, seemed to relish the attention, a small crowd gathering to watch the spectacle. The grand silverback, normally a picture of stoic majesty, was pacing agitatedly at the back of his habitat, a low rumble emanating from his chest. Mr. Henderson approached, a gentle smile fixed on his face, though his eyes held a steely glint. "Excuse me, sir," he began, his voice calm but clear, cutting through the man's rhythmic blows. "I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to stop that. It's quite upsetting for the animals, you see. They're very sensitive to loud noises and sudden movements." Mr. Grumbles paused, his hand hovering mid-air, a flicker of annoyance crossing his features. He glanced at the growing audience, clearly weighing his options. The gorilla let out another, slightly louder grunt. The air crackled with a subtle tension. The grumpy man's challenge. "Excuse me, sir," Mr. Henderson began, his voice soft but firm. "Could you please refrain from hitting the glass? It disturbs the animals." Mr. Grumbles, a man whose face seemed permanently etched into a scowl, let out a booming laugh that echoed in the humid air of the enclosure. It wasn't a friendly laugh, but a harsh, derisive sound that made a few nearby visitors flinch. He glanced at Mr. Henderson, his eyes glinting with amusement, before turning back to the thick pane of glass separating him from Mighty. With a smug grin, Mr. Grumbles raised his fist again, this time striking the glass with even greater force. The thud reverberated, a jarring sound in the normally subdued atmosphere. He then pointed a stubby finger directly at Mighty, who sat slumped in a corner, his back to the commotion. "Look at the silly gorilla," he bellowed, his voice carrying clearly. "He won't do anything, just sits there like a big, dumb lump." He punctuated his taunt with another loud bang, his eyes fixed on Mighty, daring him to react. A small crowd was beginning to gather, drawn by the escalating noise. Mighty's roar. The persistent thump-thump-thump against the reinforced glass echoed, an infuriating punctuation to the already strained silence of Mighty's enclosure. Mr. Grumbles, oblivious or uncaring, continued his performative display, a smirk playing on his lips as if he were the main attraction. Mr. Henderson, his brow furrowed with concern, had already made his polite, unheeded request for the man to desist. Mighty, who had been patiently observing, felt a slow burn ignite within him. His gaze, previously a deep, thoughtful brown, began to darken, the irises contracting until they were nearly indistinguishable from his pupils as they locked onto the disrespectful figure on the other side. A low growl, barely audible at first, vibrated in his chest. It wasn't a warning, not yet, but a gathering of immense power. Mighty slowly began to rise, an unhurried, deliberate ascent that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. His immense shoulders broadened, his back straightening, and with each inch he gained, the air in the enclosure seemed to grow heavier, charged with an unspoken threat. Mr. Grumbles, mid-thump, faltered, his smirk dissolving into a look of mild apprehension. Mighty was now towering, a colossal shadow against the sun-dappled rocks. Then the air ripped. A deep, guttural roar, primal and resonant, tore through the silence, rattling the very foundations of the exhibit hall. It wasn't just sound. It was a physical force, a declaration that shook every bone in Mr. Grumble's body. The Great Bang. The air in the primate enclosure, already thick with the scent of damp earth and a faint, musky sweetness, seemed to hum with an unspoken tension. Mr. Grumbles, emboldened by Mr. Henderson's gentle plea, had just delivered another sharp rap against the viewing panel, a smug grin plastered across his face. He watched Mighty, who sat stoically, a dark, immense presence, with an almost bored disdain. Then, slowly, deliberately, Mighty began to stir. His massive arm, a ripple of muscle and sinew rose. It ascended with an unnerving slowness, drawing the eye, every fiber of Mr. Henderson's being tightening with anticipation. Mr. Grumbles, oblivious, chuckled. "What's the big ape going to do now? Wave hello." The question died on his lips as Mighty's hand, a colossal, fur-covered paddle, connected with the thick glass. Not a tap, not a rap, but a profound, resonant crack that vibrated through the very soles of their feet. It was a sound that seemed to tear the air, a booming percussion that dwarfed Mr. Grumble's pathetic attempts into insignificance. The entire viewing area reverberated. Mr. Grumbles let out a yelp, an undignified squeak of pure terror. He stumbled backward, tripping over his own feet, his face draining of all color, leaving it a startling, ghostly white. His arrogant smirk had vanished, replaced by wide, terrified eyes fixed on Mighty, who now regarded him with an unblinking, knowing gaze. Mr. Henderson, though startled by the sheer force, felt a strange surge of vindication. King of his home. Mr. Grumbles, his face a mottled red, tripped over his own feet, a yelp escaping his lips as he stumbled backward. His pride, already bruised, seemed to shatter as he spun around and, without another word, scurried away from the enclosure. The sound of his rapid footsteps faded quickly, replaced by the soft giggles that escaped Lily and Grandma. Mighty, having made his point, settled back onto his perch with a slow, deliberate movement. His chest puffed out slightly, and a regal air surrounded him as he surveyed his domain. Mr. Henderson, who had watched the entire exchange with a calm demeanor, offered Mighty a gentle, approving smile. "Well done, old boy," he murmured, almost inaudibly. Lily watched Mighty, a new understanding dawning on her. He wasn't just an animal in a cage. He was a sovereign, a guardian of his space. The signs, the rules, Mr. Henderson's gentle warnings, none of them had the same impact as Mighty's booming declaration. He was the one who enforced respect within his walls, and in that moment, Lily knew with absolute certainty, Mighty was the true king of his home. A shiver of awe, not fear, traced its way down her spine.